Hi everyone, I'm Irene. You're watching Perpetually Paperback. Welcome or welcome back if you're new here. No. Today, I'm going to be talking about the worst books that I read in 2021. Sorry, I've got a sick puppy. I think this is going to be his only cameo. So, I'm actually going to combine this video this year with my most disappointing books of the year, mostly because the worst books that I read, I actually talked about mid-year. I really didn't have a whole lot more options, which honestly is great because it meant that I had a really awesome reading year. Just am not able to provide really, interesting content. So let me just run through those really quickly. Some of the books that I disliked the most this year was 450 from Paddington by Agatha Christie. Really, there was nothing wrong with this one. I just was just kind of disappointed with it. Like it was a very Agatha Christie. It definitely was an Agatha Christie novel. I had just never read any, and I feel like it probably also wasn't a very good place to start. I just wanted it to be more interesting than it was. And I'm a big mood-based reader, so I don't know if this was just I wasn't in the mood to read it, and I was. I read this I was trying to do a reading challenge for most of the year. I ended up stopping around June because right about this time, and I think this was the book where I was just like, I'm finding these books that are trying to fulfill a prompt, but I'm not actually enjoying them. So, or for that matter, yeah, I don't think I enjoyed any of the books that I read for that. So, yeah. I ended up not doing that. I was kind of more into like what I felt like. I was starting to get into it. Anyway, moving on. Didn't love it. Next one I disliked was Sarah McLean's A Scot in the Dark. I talked about this one as well. Go ahead and watch that video if you want me to get really into it. Aside of just, this is one of the first romances that I just didn't vibe with. I usually am pretty easy to please, I would say. Like up until this one, I'd really not met one that I disliked. This one had issues with characterization and just a bunch of stuff that I really didn't like, thought was kind of stupid. But this was the first romance that I was like, yeah, just not into. We have got there. Okay. Next, I disliked The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I know a lot of people really like it, or I heard a lot of people really like it. And then, yeah, at this point I've heard a little bit of everything. I can't see why people would like it. I don't happen to be one of them. I found it a little bit just, honestly, just annoying. And I don't think that Matt Haig is my author. I cannot see myself being into this writing style in any other capacity. Just not for me. So that was The Midnight Library. Oh no, I was wrong. Forget everything I said about Sarah McLean. There was a book that I hated before her. It is Julia Quinn's The Duke and I. Obviously, like everyone else, I ate Bridgerton up like you don't even know. Loved the series. Well, I don't know that I'd love the series, but I can say I really enjoyed it. In general, also, I like historical romance, and I was going to eat that shit up whether it was good or bad. So that's kind of where I stood on that. The book, wow. I had so many problems with it. I'm still baffled by how it is that this series is the one that got made when I have read new authors, different authors, and everyone is just so much better. I truly, truly don't understand. But, also it's not for me to understand. Her readership is insane. She sold a shit ton of books, and she's now getting them into a series. So, my opinion doesn't matter. But I fucking hated it. Like, I hated it. It made me so angry. Ugh. In this video, I really wanted to make it worth anything. So I'm going to be talking about the books that I found most disappointing. Now, these aren't necessarily the books that I hated the most. But for one reason or another, I just had a lot of problems with it. And I really want to start with Joe Abercrombie's The Wisdom of Crowds. It was the third book in the second part of I don't remember the name of the series. I read all three of these with my boyfriend and another friend of ours that we read all of them together. I had a lot of problems with this series. If nothing else, it just irritated me that everyone praised it so much when at the end of the day, the material was just kind of boring. It was a character study. I can see why people would like Joe Abercrombie. It does make me want to go read the first 3 in these because I think that the characters I like the most, well, not I think, based off of the conversations that we had, I think that I'm really, really going to enjoy the beginnings of Glokta and some of the other characters that I think I liked a lot more. But yeah, this one did not do it for me. I think I started in the wrong place. I maybe would have liked it a little bit more had I read the first part of the series, but to be honest, I don't know because ultimately just it was boring. I just found it boring. I'd heard so many things about Joe Abercrombie being grimdark, and I just didn't really find that. So I think this was disappointing for me because I had talked up Joe Abercrombie in my head so much. I was expecting a really grim, dark novel. I expected it to be kind of a really gruesome fantasy, and really didn't get that with this one. I got a part of fantasy that isn't something I usually tend to care to read. The dynamics between the characters, the political dynamics, I thought were all almost interesting, but not quite. But yeah, ultimately there were some things I liked, some things I really didn't like about it, but it just in general, it was kind of an underwhelming read. All 3 of them ended up being underwhelming. The one I liked the most was, I think, The Blade itself, the first one in that set of 3. What else disappointed me this year? I don't know that I can say, this might end up on my most disappointing and also most surprising, but Daisy Jones and the Six. I read that for my Taylor Jenkins Reid author taste test and really loved Evelyn Hugo, got into Daisy Jones, was loving the first half of it, and then it really just kind of fell flat for me. I feel like there was just little to no character development towards the end, and what little character development there was irritated me to no end anyway. So that's kind of where that one stood for me. But ultimately I thought it was fine. What else? The Sanatorium by Sarah Pierce. I was on such a thriller kick when I read this. I don't know what about it, even from the time I first saw it. I think it was a Reese's Book Club pick. I wanted to read this book. I wanted to read it so badly. Why? I don't fucking know. There's something about like being caught in a like secluded ass Alps chalet that I'm like, yeah, that's some scary shit. I want to be into that. It was also a psych ward that was converted into a hotel. I was like, yes, this is giving me Shining vibes. I'm here for it. And then the shit didn't go anywhere, and what ended up coming was fucking stupid. So that was irritating and disappointing. Moving on, because there's not really much more to say about that one. That was just... Oh, this is an honorable mention. I believe I talked about this one in my worst of the halfway through the year. I really didn't have a great beginning of the year. I had a very good end of the year. Or maybe it was just that I didn't give a shit anymore at the end of the year. I don't know. I read a lot of historical romance towards the end of the year. I would say maybe I read a little bit more substance. I did read... what is it, Strangers on a Train by Patricia Highsmith that I thought was just, I didn't love it, stupid, kind of disappointing, and I do want to read The Talented Mr. Ripley because I've heard such good things about it, but I wasn't a huge fan of Strangers on the Train. That was upsetting. Last Garden in England. It was a book that I believe came out earlier in the year, towards the beginning half of 2021, and again, I just found it. It's a historical fiction set in London about gardens. I think if you like the subject matter, this is one to definitely check out because it wasn't terrible by any means. It just never really got quite exciting, and I feel like the thing that was supposed to be, like the reveal that was supposed to be exciting in this one just wasn't very exciting. I don't know, but I guess if like a book about gardens, it wasn't the worst. I don't know. If you really like gardens, if you really like British gardens, you will love this one. There's a decent enough story in it. I think that is it for me just shitting on books for the year. Oh, this was also the year that I ended my Amelia Peabody series. I think I got into the 7th or 8th of these. The last one I read was The Deeds of the Disturber, and that was kind of it for me, where I was just, no, that's not true. The Lion in the Valley. The Lion in the Valley was where I ended the series. I just kind of got to the point where I was like, I don't care about everything that's happening. it got a little bit too far away from the Amelia Peabody character at this point, and I just found myself not being interested anymore. So that was a bit disappointing, but fear not, I ended up going on with other series. Mermaid of Jeju is another one I would generally say avoid. There just was no story there. It was the first part of something interesting and then a fever dream that just shit on us all. Oh, and I will end this video with talking about my only DNF of the year. That's not true. Actually, there were a couple other DNFs but I don't think that I've mentally DNF. I'm not a big DNFer because I'm the kind of person that's like, I'm so much of a mood reader that I'm just gonna be like, I will set this aside. At one point, I will find that I will be in the mood for this again. So I am generally a set-asider versus a DNFer because I'm also too lazy to go back and actually read the whole thing I read. I'll just like halfway skim it to remind myself of the general idea of where I was. Usually I was kind of bored halfway through and that's why I stopped, so I'm not gonna go and re-board myself. Anyway, the only book that I can say I really DNF'd was The Beauty and Breaking by Michelle Walker. I could be wrong on that, but it is a memoir about a resident in New York. Pretty much, she's a doctor in New York. I didn't think it was bad. I just also didn't think it was good, and got myself to the point of where I was 75% in, and I just found that I didn't really care anymore. I didn't find it difficult particularly. It was emotionally compelling. There wasn't really anything wrong with it. I think I was just not in the mood for it, and then I never got in the mood for it, and then I just didn't care, and the thought of even finishing the last 25% of it was just like not even fucking worth it. So I don't know that that's an actual mark on the book. I would say I don't think that should be a deterrent to you reading. I think that was a lot of me in that decision, but ultimately that is really the only book that I did DNF. Maybe the only other book that I can say would be Who Killed Maud Dixon? But to be honest, I'm still kind of like, I feel like I could be interested in wanting to find out what happens. I was not loving it, if I'm being honest, but also I wasn't hating it so much, and I find myself going back and just thinking about like, what did happen to Maud Dixon? So I suspect I will revisit that at some point. Yeah, those are my worst of the year. I actually, thankfully, didn't really have anything that was just straight trash, aside of, I'd say, maybe I was like personally offended by The Duke and I. So maybe if anything, I can say that was like straight trash. And I was very frustrated with The Mermaid of Jeju. Those were probably my like most personally frustrating reads of the year. But I don't think I read anything that was just like straight, like just literary crap. And that is a win. One of the few of 2021. Anyway, I will see you guys next time. If you're interested in more of these videos, I have a best and most surprising of the year coming up. So definitely check those out, along with some of the other reading plans I've got going on. I would love to hear what your best and worst were of the year. Definitely leave those in the comments below. Talk to you guys next time.